Hello, my name is Stephanie Nemajanov, and I am an anthropology major at Troy University. Since long before I knew what anthropology was, I have been fascinated with people. What languages do they speak? What cultural traditions do they have? Do they practice a religion? Have they traveled the world? What everyday things are important to them? There are many different areas of study in anthropology, and linguistic anthropology is one that is quite intriguing to me. This term, we have learned about a range of topics, including the evolution of language, cross-language miscommunication, the first writing systems, whistling languages, and so much more. My favorite topic to explore within linguistic anthropology is silent languages, so let's explore them together. Anatomically modern humans, or AMHs, evolved around 300,000 years ago in Africa. Since then, humankind has developed many ways of communicating with each other, from vocalized grunts to knot-tying messages, from early writing systems to the modern-day text message. Of all the forms of communication throughout our existence, however, the loudest of all of these is actually silent. Before spoken language, humans primarily communicated with body language and gestures, touch, and even spatial distancing. Kinesics, haptics, and proxemics did not have assigned terms so many millennia ago, but even today, humankind's oldest form of communication is still the most common way to send and receive messages in the modern world. Before we get into the different types of nonverbal communication, here's a fun fact. Did you know that nonverbal human communication is not exclusive to humankind? That's right. Apes, humans, and monkeys are all primates, and observing the behaviors of non-human primates makes scientists more confident that these behaviors have phylogenetic origins, meaning that these behaviors developed sometime throughout evolutionary history. Charles Darwin believed that the development of body movements for use of communication correlated to evolutionary advancement, and in the expression of emotion in man and animals, Darwin wrote, "With mankind, some expressions, such as the bristling of the hair under the influence of extreme terror, or the uncovering of the teeth under that of furious rage, can hardly be understood, except on the belief that man once existed in a much lower and animal-like condition. The community of certain expressions in distinct though allied species, as in the movements of the same facial muscles during laughter by man and various monkeys, is rendered somewhat more intelligible if we believe in their descent from a common progenitor. Studies show that the more complex a species' social structure, the greater their ability to use expressive behaviors. Though we cannot change colors like some lizards and octopi can, we can contort our faces into many more meaningful ways than other species are able. Humans and non-human primates exhibit similar behaviors within their social relationships. They may participate in a loving embrace, prod at one another when annoyed, or groom those close to them. Not every bodily movement is considered to be nonverbal communication. In order to qualify as nonverbal communication, there must be a message being sent, or someone must interpret that some meaning was intended. Guerrero and Hecht explain in the Nonverbal Communication Reader that, to qualify as a message, a behavior typically must be sent with intent and/or it must typically be interpreted by others as meaning something. In other words, it must have social meaning. Now let's take a look at the different types of nonverbal communication. Though often used in conjunction, kinesics, haptics, and proxemics are all distinct categories. Kinesics is the study of body language, which includes facial expressions, body movements, and eye movements. Gestures, grimacing, and even a deliberately long gaze are all considered to be kinesics, arguably the most well-known of the three silent languages we will discuss today. Haptics refers to the culturally accepted rules of nonverbal communication through touch, which can include physical greetings, grabbing, hitting, and caressing. Finally, proxemics is the study of how we use the space between us to communicate certain messages, whether to let someone know you are interested or maybe even that you are leery of them. Though maybe not as obvious as simply verbalizing what you are trying to communicate, according to Dr. Judy Burgoon's research, approximately 60 to 65% of social meaning is communicated non-verbally. It is also thought that there is not a single body movement, physical display, or facial expression that does not correlate to some underlying meaning. So why not just say what you mean? Though spoken language is quite powerful, nonverbal messages can accomplish an array of desired intentions. Greeting others and creating first impressions are among the top ways we foster social relationships with other humans. We can express emotions, relay feelings of intimacy, send deceptive signals, and even display messages of power and persuasion. Nonverbal communication is a highly effective tool. We should remember that nonverbal communication, like sign language, is not universal. Nonverbal messages are influenced by context, which includes cultural, relational, and situational elements. A simple handshake in the US is the most common way to greet others, but not every country's people use the handshake. In India, children are taught the word namaste and are instructed to hold their hands in a praying position at their chest while initiating a slight forward bow. Note that in India, the left hand is generally used for bodily hygiene, so if you're going to offer a handshake, don't let it be your left one. In the Middle East, older generations still perform salam when greeting, which is signaled by sweeping the right hand upward touching the heart, then the forehead, and then up and outward. In Uzbekistan, salam is a respectable greeting, but it is accompanied by placing the right hand over the heart and giving a reverent bow. In France and Italy, many people, regardless of sex, greet others with a kiss on both cheeks. It is pertinent to remember that haptics can vary across cultures depending on gender and social constructs, and especially in groups where there is a high level of modesty among women, such as in Arab cultures. Laura Tubel de Gonzalez notes that certain religious groups prohibit all social touch between men and women who are not married or blood relatives, such as Orthodox Jews. Hand gestures, also known as emblems, can translate directly into spoken language using just one or two words. In North America, the hand gesture for A-OK is indicated by forming a circle with the thumb and index finger and leaving the remaining fingers extended, like this. The same gesture means money in Japan, a cruder term for donkey in parts of southern Italy, and is considered an insulting or vulgar sexual invitation in Greece and Turkey. Raising your hands and shoulders can translate to I don't know, and holding up the middle finger can silently say a common, albeit foul, expletive. Just like greetings, emblems are not universal, and what one might consider polite in one culture could be highly offensive in another. For example, Italians are famous for their gesture known as che vuoi, which is performed by gathering all the fingertips pointing upward, which can emphasize frustration or confusion. The same gesture in Uzbekistan is considered an extremely rude way to tell someone to keep your mouth shut. Did you know that some cultures will form an entire message using speech-independent gestures? There are even certain jobs where it is necessary, such as with scuba divers or people working in noisy mills. However, gesture systems not limited to a specific task are known as sign languages. Though most often used by the hearing impaired, sign languages can develop for other reasons, such as in monasteries where inhabitants have taken a vow of silence. Speech-independent gestures are not limited to hands and body movements, though, and they include facial expressions and eye behavior as well. Surely you've heard the saying, "Your face says it all." It can absolutely be true, and so much of human expression is done through facial movements. In the 1970s, psychology professor Albert Mehrabian developed a concept termed the 7-38-55 rule, which states that 55% of meaning is communicated through body language, 38% through facial expression, and only 7% through spoken word. The human face is remarkably expressive and can provide others with significant nonverbal feedback. It can convey specific emotions, such as happiness or anger, or even reflect attitudes, such as disgust. If we are disinterested in what someone is saying, we might yawn to indicate boredom. If we are impatiently waiting for our turn in a conversation, we might open our mouth as if to speak in hopes that the other person will end their turn soon. We rely heavily on interpretation of facial cues, and researchers believe that this begins when, as infants, we take special interest in the huge face peering over our crib and tending to our needs. The idea of facial primacy means that we tend to pay attention to and judge people by their facial expressions more so than we do to the other channels of communication, such as hand gestures or body language. Facial motor mimicry is what someone does to display how another person might be feeling. For example, if someone stubs their toe on the coffee table, an observer might wince in pain, even though they are not physically affected. Though stated previously that humans do not have the capability of changing their colors like certain species of lizards, there is such a phenomenon called the chameleon effect. The chameleon effect proposes that people tend to mimic the mannerisms of people that they interact with. Whether done consciously or unconsciously, mimicking physical behaviors helps us to connect with others. Eye movements are a form of kinesics and can be used to communicate effectively. Note that normal blinking is not considered communication, but rather an involuntary bodily behavior. However, a wink might indicate that someone is joking or flirting and can be interpreted as a meaningful gesture. Eye movements are sometimes referred to as oculesics. Downward glances can show modesty, widened eyes can express surprise or terror, eye rolling can exhibit annoyance, and totally immobile eyes may show coldness or indifference. Just as with other gestures, culture can determine what is appropriate eye behavior. For example, in some other cultures, it is considered rude to make extended direct eye contact or that it is inappropriate to glance at certain body parts. Gazing has many functions, and British psychologist Adam Kendon identified 4 categories: regulatory, monitoring, cognitive, and expressive. Regulatory relates to making sure the channels of communication are open. If you are attempting to get your server's attention so that you can request a refill of your drink, you might try to make eye contact to open that line of communication. Monitoring means to determine another's reception of what you are saying. Are they bored? Are they intrigued? The cognitive category assesses the mental gymnastics of either the speaker or the listener. Studies show that eye movement occurs more frequently when someone is asked reflective questions over factual questions, requiring them to formulate their response over simply stating a known fact. Finally, expressive refers to the listener's emotional reception of what you are saying. Tears may indicate sadness, but without other context clues, they could also mean anger, joy, or some other blend of emotions. Speech-related gestures are sometimes called illustrators and can be described as talking with your hands. Many people use speech-related gestures to emphasize what they are saying. For example, pointing movements can indicate a specific person, place, or thing, or holding hands with palms facing upward can convey, "I'm not sure." Though speech-related gestures are most often used when speaking to someone in person, they can still be used while talking on the telephone, even though the recipient cannot see the gesture being performed. Touching, also known as tactile communication or haptics, can be any behavior ranging from hitting and kicking to hugging and caressing, among others. A child on the playground might push his or her crush, or someone might smile and gently touch their friend on the shoulder when trying to persuade them to do them a favor. The use of haptics can build trust between people or function as a tool of control or dominance. Though sometimes used for ulterior motives, touch is a necessary form of communication among primates, and it is essential to building and maintaining social bonds. Touch is crucial and supports emotional health and cognitive development. Humans also communicate nonverbally through the use of proxemics, which is effectively using spatial distancing to help shape interactions. Anthropologist Edward T. Hall observed human spatial behaviors and classified personal or informal space into 4 categories. Intimate, from physical contact up to about 18 inches. Casual personal, 1.5 feet to 4 feet. Social consultative, from 4 to 12 feet. And public distance, 12 feet to the limit at which you can see or hear another person. This conversational distance can also be influenced by cultural norms and can be misinterpreted in some situations, but Hall's findings are suggested to be standard. Intimate space is often used among lovers, close friends, or family members, and is reserved for those who have one's highest trust. Casual personal distance is typical for friendly conversation or with acquaintances. Social consultative distance is primarily used for professional or business interactions, but proves effective during a pandemic. And public distance is frequently used when addressing large groups, such as in a press conference. Communicating intimacy combines the use of all 3 forms of nonverbal communication: kinesics, haptics, and proxemics. Showing that you are available is pretty easily conveyed with body language. Extended eye contact, suggestively moving your hips, flipping your hair, gently brushing the person's arm, and standing very close to someone are all ways to indicate that you are interested. One might engage in preening behaviors, such as reapplying makeup, fixing their hair, or checking their teeth in order to draw the romantic attention of others. Someone who is disinterested might cross their arms and turn their body away from you, but exhibiting open and friendly-looking positional cues may indicate to someone that you are receptive to a relationship, or at the very least, a conversation. Nonverbal communication is highly effective and is often perceived to be more believable than spoken language. Research suggests that our use of nonverbal communication has phylogenetic origins, and we share this cognitive ability with other primates. Kinesics, haptics, and proxemics can be used when we cannot talk or when we do not want to talk, and utilizing these forms of communication helps us to emphasize certain points or hold our listeners' attention, and sometimes to show dominance or assertiveness. Hand movements, spatial distancing, facial expressions, eye behavior, and touch are all standalone ways to convey a message to others, but they can be even more productive when used in combination with each other. Culture is what determines the meaning of gestures used, and we have yet to discover one that means the same thing across all cultures. From prehistoric grunts to the emoji-laden text message, humans have developed all manner of ways to communicate with each other. What will we think of next?